This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC. I have the pleasure of bringing a friend of mine from Greenwich, Connecticut, franchisee of Serotonin Centers by way of New Jersey, right? Chris Rotondi, welcome to the first Halo Talks.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Appreciate the invite.
So we met first time when you were in pre-sale or right about to open your location last year for the anti-aging longevity, and the place looked pristine, and you were ready to kind of hit the playing field. So talk about what you were doing before this and why you decided to get into the industry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So as far as what I was doing prior to this, I actually held a career with a company called Shift 4 as the 13th employee hired. So I was like 25 at the time. Faxed my resume in. The CEO actually was he was 18, started the business when he was 16.
Wow.
Since then, company went public. They did that probably about, I think it was like 2021. So all along the way, I walked in there, got my little interview. Started off just supporting credit card terminals, then grew with the company all the way through. Ended up in the business development aspects, and then all along the way, you see that entrepreneurial spirit from your CEO. But then also, kind of my line of work, I was dealing with small businesses the entire way, both as far as like your merchants, but then all the independent agents as well. They were all entrepreneurs building their own businesses, starting from scratch, and a lot of times they were very close to my age at the time. So as time went on, company got bigger and bigger and bigger. You start dealing with more sophisticated organizations. Sort of towards the end of my career there, I was dealing with the same like sort of entrepreneurs, but they had now matured into these large like software companies like ISVs, right? So, seeing all of that growth and then being around it the whole time, it inspired me to like as we got towards that IPO, and then as the 13th employee hired, kind of had my reward for that at that time. I saw that as inspiration to, kind of, move on to, say that next phase of my life. And, I've always been into health and wellness. Fortunately for myself, like I kind of learned about like, let's say like biohacking, for lack of a better term, and was able to have a lot of success with that as far as like, if I do say so myself, but, from like, age 35 on, became really passionate about it, saw this opportunity, and seized it. Right. I think Eric and Matt Moriello over there as well.
Sure.
They were both really really helpful in like in taking that leap. And ever since then, I'm very fortunate to be in the position to where I have now my own business. I have 6 licenses total. So over the next few years, we're going to look to build at least 6 of these. But it's a business, right? And then I'm the owner, so it's kind of your responsibility to go as far as you can. So if that turns into 60, it turns into 60. If it turns into 10, it turns into 10. But,
Yeah.
my job is to push it and, be a good owner operator along the way. So, that's pretty much my story.
So when you were, debating on what your next chapter would be after, having a great run at Shift 4 and being in an entrepreneurial organization, knowing what the risks and returns of that, were, and actually, getting that, slice of reward. What other types of concepts did you consider before landing on the serotonin concept?
Yeah, this is probably the answer you don't want to hear, or like most people don't want to hear, but really it was like
the truth. The truth.
yeah.
Halo Talks is all about the truth. So tell us, because everybody's got their own journey.
Oh,
So
okay, yeah, perfect. No,
yeah,
the minute
go
I
for
came
it.
across this, I knew it was what I wanted to do. I knew I did want to move into something. Didn't really give it like too much thought to where like,
Okay.
I didn't let, the details get in the way of a decision on this one. And then I just went with it from there. So, I dabbled in real estate a little bit, but I think like that it was, I guess it's a good idea until like you kind of practice it. And it doesn't really, for me, it didn't necessarily have like the reward of actually like making that contribution back, right? Like you get to see a lot of like really, you get to change lives in this, right? Whereas like,
Yeah.
real estate, you don't quite get that. And, so as soon as I saw it, I kind of latched onto it, and I decided that was the next step. So I'd
Awesome.
say fate more than anything else.
Yeah. So you weren't looking at like, I'm thinking about doing this express car wash or serotonin, and you kind of sat down at the table and like ran some numbers. This is more of a passion play in the right place for you to be,
Yeah,
fit
just
your personality and your desires. So what have been some of the early, takeaways or some of the early, wins, if you will, whether that's like a client that came in and, you know, changed their life, or, you know, you had an aha moment, you know, at running your own business, you know, positive and negative.
Yeah, I mean, I would say as far as the clients go and the wins, it is. We opened in April, so now we're looking at probably what we're 10 months in. So you have some of those early clients, right? They came in, they had their weight loss goals or even their body composition goals, and now you're starting to really see those results, right? You're coming across people that now they've lost like 35, 40 pounds, and they attribute that all to kind of what they've gotten here as far as the
Hmm.
coaching and the way we approach that, which is really rewarding. So I'd say those are the definite wins, right? Like the more you can repeat that, that's infectious, right? And then everybody kind of sees that, and then the aha moments, right? Or it's anytime you kind of realize it's a lot harder than you think it's going to be when
Yeah,
you
sure.
first go in. And then after that, it's just, the idea of like, you have to trust yourself to figure things out, and everything can be figured out. Right. So
Yeah.
I think that's the aha moment, when you're looking at it, like, so your pro forma and everything else, you kind of think, oh, okay, this is easy. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And everything's going to work out. And it's like, I guess like everyone's got a plan until, right.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, this business is not, you know, it's not like you put up a Dunkin' Donuts sign and, you know, you get to take advantage of people that are just, you know, looking for a closer Dunkin' Donuts or, you know, want to switch coffees. How have you felt about, you know, when you started biohacking back in, you know, when you were 35, whenever that was, to where we are today? You know, I think the average person actually, you know, knows, you know, the words peptides and NAD and testosterone shots and pellets. Whereas before, I think it was almost like this black box of biohackers, and it was almost like maybe that's what like the freaks were doing. And you know, now it's kind of gotten mainstream, but it's probably still, I'd say, like in the first or second inning, where it's like, you know, that the momentum is there. It just might take a while to educate or get to, like, you know, for the wave to kind of crash. So where do you psychologically feel you are, and what kind of conversations when you have them with people to say like, oh, I understand what you're doing, versus before they might have been like, dude, like you're off the reservation.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising because, I guess a lot of things that say if you were like kind of in the know, we'll say like even 8 years ago, like if you look at NAD, for instance,
Right.
you hear kind of people now kind of latching on to that as if it's like the newest and the greatest thing, which it's a great thing, right? But I think like the fact that attests to the idea that it is so mainstream now, to where like people who like wouldn't even say consider the idea or be interested in it are now just, it's almost a top of mind conversation for them as well. And then from there, you can just really tell, like, with the conversations you have with people, you can tell where they are on, like, say, in their journey, right? Like some
Right.
people are like, the people that, like, say a few years ago who would have, maybe just be getting started their journey, they're now talking about these same things at the beginning. Whereas, in the past, that probably wasn't the case. And then the other, side of that is, someone who's like, you can tell when someone's like really advanced in kind of, where they are in their journey and their pursuits as well. Because, there's so many different, say even peptides that, aren't even offered, say at like a serotonin, for instance, yet, but that are out there. And then people know about those now as well. So it's pretty amazing how quickly everything is caught on.
When you think about marketing in this industry, and knowing that, you know, it's going to take time and it's going to be a relatively like slow ramp to just get to the point where everyone's going to the Serotonin Center where you're at, and a lot of people might not know what that is at first, right? And they're on different, you know, parts of their journey, or like, you know, awareness. Um, my question is, if you know that word of mouth and referrals is probably going to be where you get most of your revenue and where you get most of your members, where you get most of your buy-in, how do you think about marketing, you know, locally, and what do you say to the market? Because I could go in there and I want to lose weight, I want to get stronger, I want to have more, you know, I want to, you know, get testosterone, at the end of the day, you kind of want to get their blood work and say, okay, let me tell you what to do. But putting up a sign that says, get your blood work done here might not be really like what you want to have on the front door. So how do you think about that? And obviously, Serotonin Corporate is giving you, the content and the collateral materials, but every kind of micro market is different. So what kind of resonates in Greenwich, and where do you find the most benefit, or like, this is what resonates? Because I think it's different everywhere you go.
Yeah, no, I think word of mouth is definitely still king as far as building a business goes. I mean, you have to have digital, you have to play in that in that part of your marketing, right? Like, there's no way around it. You have to be there. But that's kind of like more just like your cover, right? And then from there, you have to be able to go in and actually say, go to pop-ups, meet meet clients, face to face, shake hands, and then bring people in, right? It's all about networking from there. And especially like, I think here for sure, the area I'm in, it feels like everyone knows each other one way or another, or there's some sort of connection, right? So like, that whole idea of, face to face, bringing people in, and then, managing your reputation well, and being what you say you want to be, or you are, is really important. So the authenticity is everything in this area, but in this space as well.
Yeah. I was at a cycling class yesterday. I moved out to Arizona, and I was in a Starbucks, literally like three doors down. And the woman behind the counter was saying, "Oh, what are you up to?" And I said, "I'm going to cycling studio." And she's like, "Oh, where's that?" And I'm like, thinking to myself, how is the owner or operator of the cycling studio? How have they not canvassed, every co-tenant in this shopping plaza to either give them a free class, or put them on some kind of like employee, neighbor discount or something. So how aggressive are you in knowing the other operators in your strip center? Trying to do, whether it's co-marketing, or at least, having, some awareness inside of each one of the co-tenants, or like a nail salon, or a hairstylist, or, waxing center. Where do you find the most interest in kind of, say like, hey, our clients should be your clients, and vice versa?
Yeah, I think like with us, I think you definitely have to be aggressive, especially like in our, in your like first, like say 500 feet, right? You have to be able to like own those relationships,
Yeah.
within your shopping center. Sometimes it's difficult though. I think like, as a small business, it is what it is, right? There's only so many things someone could do in a day. And a lot of times when you're going to those other small businesses, right? Like maybe they could be somewhere in their business cycle to where like maybe they're not interested, or they don't know how to necessarily cultivate those relationships. So, sometimes it's a work in progress, but you have to keep going, right? Because it's a necessity. But as far as like say collabs go, and like what we look for, it's pretty much like with us, we're fortunate. I mean, there's so many, everybody wants to be happier and healthier, right? So like we can pretty much tie on to pretty much any sort of business that plays in that space as well, or like caters to it, right? So like, right now we're working on one of our neighbors. It's a Vitality Bowls actually. So we're actually going to have a serotonin bowl, and probably a juice that we make as well. That's going to be on their menu, and then same idea. We'll be able to kind of refer some of our clients there. Most likely, what we'll do is kind of a good play. Going back to like the Sero Vitals and the actual say, wanting to like actually say, take a look at blood panels, is you have to come in fasted for that. So, we're probably going to, as they come in and after after we do their comprehensive health assessment, we're actually going to send them over there as well, so they can get their first meal, probably get a little, get their carbs up again, because they're probably a little depleted, and then they can go on with their day. But, I think like anyone in that, particular like kind of health space is where we want to be, or wellness as well.
Yeah. So as you got into the model, and this is much more complicated than an average, retail store, or doing a QSR, food concept. So what's the level of staffing and the people that you need to bring inside of your company? And two, how difficult is it to run it? And if you were running it on your own, instead of having a franchisor that's basically like tell you like, here's the guidelines, here's how the procedures are. In this industry, I feel like the franchisor or franchisees are probably going to outperform an independent operator, because an independent operator really needs to know what's going on in so many different facets of medicine, in new innovations on technology, as well as like governmental restrictions and things you can and can't do.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think it's like whoever can figure out the way to scale and grow the most efficiently kind of wins the game in this space for sure. And then with the franchisor, that it kind of solves a lot of those problems. Like you said, I think if being like, if I were going to start this myself, every time, it's just hard. It's just very easy, right? When every time there's an issue or some indecision, it'd be very easy to just like kind of think it's a bad idea and move on or never get started. Whereas in a franchise scenario, right, like you always have an answer, and there's always like a way to push forward. And then you also have like all of that experience and all that, kind of acquired, say, wisdom, right, from the actual franchisor that they can share with you and then help you along the way. So you can make your mistakes, like you're going to make them the same, but you can make them faster and then improve faster as a result, right? And then you have all your other franchisees as well that can contribute to that constant improvement. So I mean, I think it's a real big advantage. And then, after your first store, it gets a lot easier to just take, where you are in that first location, and you can start that second location almost from that same, level, rather than going back, having like, say, all those, like, say, rookie mistakes that maybe you made when you first opened. And as far as the staff, right? I mean, a lot of times you're going to have a nurse practitioner, you're going to have RNs. These are, highly skilled, educated people. And the same with like your general manager, health coaches. Everyone's really skilled, so putting them in place, it gives you the ability to succeed. And then the fact that you can give them manuals and you can give them kind of other like educational materials, right, to like get them on their way, it really helps a lot. I wouldn't be able to do it without that, for sure, at least me personally.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I've been working in franchisee space, mostly on the fitness side and in the med spas, over the last several years. And one of the franchisees in a network, not Serotonin, said to me, "Oh, I can't believe I'm paying this much in franchise fees." And I knew the franchisor, I knew how many people that they had. It was actually an Orange Theory.
Sure.
And they had like a couple hundred people down in this corporate office down in Boca Raton. And I said, "Do you know for your 8% fee that you're basically renting like 300 people that are actually waking up every day and trying to help you with your business? Think about like what it would cost you to have a corporate overhead of that many people that were all trying to think about like, how do I help optimize the unit economics and run a better business?" So I always kind of go harken back to, if you're part of a good franchisor network, then you will get the benefits over time, and that you're basically like renting a huge professional corporate overhead is how I kind of like think about it now, versus what does that cost me dollar wise, in and of itself.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think when those are the least of your problems, the franchise or the fees from the franchisor, right? Like, I think like they exist, but yeah, they're worth every penny for the most part.
Yeah. So as you think about being an entrepreneur, you got one location. You basically live in that location, which I love, because some people say, "Oh, we're going to build my second location, third location," without kind of nailing the model before you scale the model. So where are you kind of in your own mental life cycle, for better lack of a better term, to say like, I know when I'm ready to grow, and I know I'm maybe not ready to grow yet, but I feel like I got my arms around the business model. And then you got to give yourself confidence to grow. Maybe just for the entrepreneurs that are listening to this call, to say like, speed and growth, it could be a friend, or it also could be your worst enemy.
Yeah, I think you have to manage it, right? Like I think like you kind of see this space now, and there's a lot of pressure to grow if you want to get to that point to where like you have a large organization, probably I'm sure like the idea of being backed by private equity or some sort of additional money behind you, right? Like you do have to show an ability to scale, an ability to grow quickly. And, I mean, that window exists, but at the same time, right, like a lot of, not your competitors, but others that have similar models, they're looking to do it also. So, but I think you have to manage it, right? You have to, kind of look at everything, force yourself to, learn more than you probably think you're capable of per day, and and then figure it out from there. But you want to prioritize it, but not at say not at your expense, right? Like you can't just not think about the fundamentals or forget about them in growing the business.
In closing here, you mentioned that you've had some clients, from the beginning, but just to give people a little bit of understanding about what goes on inside of your center, can you give us a couple of either quick stories or, some of the treatments and some of the results that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, really to put things like, to be blunt, right? I mean, we sell transformations, right? We give people the opportunity to come in and, either through medical weight loss, hormone replacement therapy. We also offer aesthetics. So you're looking at Botox, microneedling, fillers. We have a full suite of, BTL products, so body composition, body contouring. We also do, some things with ExoMind, so cognitive health, pelvic floor stability as well, red light therapy. So we offer people the ability, they can come in through whatever avenue, and then from there, we can walk them through all of our modalities, show them exactly how they contribute to, to longevity and, long-term health. And then from there, really just, have all of those touch points with the health coaching and the access to our nurse practitioner to really see people, make these changes all along the way. And, I think that's something that not a lot of companies have to offer. A lot of businesses do. So,
Awesome.
that pretty much hopefully answers your question.
Yeah. Well, look, we're excited that you've made the leap into the Halo sector. We like to say once you get into the sector, you'll never get out. So
Love it.
for your lifelong employment until you decide to hang it up, you're now a Halo executive, and we're excited to follow your progress and be a part of that success. So congrats on what you built. I know it's not easy, and there's a road that other people don't want to travel or just can't because they don't have the grit and the desire. So glad you got in, and good to see you.
I appreciate it, Pete. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks, your captain speaking. I am the founder and managing partner at Integrity Square. We've been around now for 15 and 1/2 years. We have been helping people like yourselves get capital, do mergers and acquisitions, consulting, strategic advice in the health, active lifestyle, and outdoor Halo sector, trying to help as many entrepreneurs as possible get to the next level, take that inflection point, and be the force behind your growth. We are helping companies that have at least $3 million of EBITDA, around $10 million of revenue, and we are positioned to help you get institutional growth capital or to negotiate deals with strategic partners. If you go to integritysq.com/ISQ, you can see our capabilities deck. Happy to set up a consultation at any time. That is free of charge, and we look forward to helping solve obesity, loneliness, and diabetes. And go Halo.